I hope you did. Let's move on. Chapter 14. Now, yesterday, Stuart found out via the Kingley triplets that his uncle's old dilapidated house, which looks a bit like this. If you look at this photo here, it looks a bit like that. His Tony Horten's original house is going to be knocked down. It's going to be demolished. Chapter 14. What are you talking about? Asked Stuart. What do you mean? The land's been taken over by the local council, said April. The house has been empty for more than 40 years, so they're going to knock it down and put a block of flats instead. When? Next week, Monday, I think. But how do you know? She shook her head. A good journalist doesn't reveal her sources. You're 10, snapped Stuart. You don't have any sources. April flushed and tossed her head. Well, as a matter of fact, I heard my dad tell a friend of his, she said. And how does your dad know? Asked Stuart. He's a builder, said all the triplets simultaneously. At that point, Stuart's father came in with the drinks and said, Behold, I bring hydration for your powwow. And May and June started giggling again and didn't stop until the dreadful tea party was over. But Stuart barely noticed. He was too busy working out exactly when he could get back to Great Uncle Tony's house, because now he was running out of time. That night, he set the alarm on his wristwatch for 4 a.m, and it was still beeping away madly when he eventually woke at 6:10. He hauled himself out of bed and looked through the window. His mother was just wheeling her bicycle up the drive, and he watched her cycle away along the road, orange helmet bobbing. Then he dressed quickly, hung the key on a piece of string around his neck, stuck 2 of the threepences in his pocket just in case, and very quietly left the house. He calculated, an hour and a half before his father woke up. It took him only 5 minutes to get to Uncle Tony's house, whizzing along empty roads in the pale morning light. But when he turned the corner into the street, he braked hard. Work had already started. There was scaffolding up the side of the house and a skip, empty as yet, squatting in the road outside. Someone had unwired the front gate. Stuart pushed it open and waded through the dewy grass to the door. There were still planks nailed across it, but above them a sheet of paper in a plastic envelope had been stapled to the frame. It was too high up for him to read properly, but he could see the words "Demolition Order" in large letters near the top. There was still no one about. Quickly he made his way to the back of the house and lifted the key from around his neck. It slid smoothly into the keyhole and turned with a sharp click. He opened the door. The first thing Stuart noticed was that it was very, very dark. He'd completely forgotten that all the windows were boarded up, and stupidly he hadn't thought to bring a torch. He opened the back door as widely as possible and looked around. He was standing in a large square kitchen lined with cupboards. He opened one of the cupboards at random and found a chipped mug and a box of matches. Unable to believe his luck, he shook the box and then looked inside. 3 matches, bent like bananas, lay within. He opened a few more cupboards, but found nothing except crockery and dead flies, and then he tried under the sink and unearthed the stub of an old candle. The first match folded limply in half when he struck it, but the second produced a tiny bluish flame. Holding his breath, Stuart held it to the wick. A clear yellow light grew and steadied. Cupping a hand round the flame, he closed the door back again and began to explore. There were 2 doors out of the kitchen. The first led to an empty cellar, festooned with cobwebs and empty except for a pile of coal. The second door opened into a passageway. Stuart walked along it cautiously, the candle flame dancing. Through an arch to the left was a dining room, the table covered with what looked like a grey furry cloth. Stuart touched it, and his finger sunk into the knuckle. It wasn't cloth, but a layer of dust as thick as a rug. He continued along the passage and through another arch into a long living room, the walls glinting with framed pictures, the furniture as dusty as the table had been. He paused beside one of the pictures. It was a theatre poster for Nottingham Hippodrome, and at the top of the list of acts was Great Uncle Tony's name, accompanied by a small black and white photograph. As Stuart peered up at his great uncle's face, like a sparkier version of his own father's, the candle flame began to flicker wildly, and he realised there was a draught swirling around his knees. He took a step back and saw a broad, empty fireplace, almost invisible in the shadows. He shielded the flame and moved on into the front hall. In the trembling yellow light, Stuart explored room after room. In the downstairs study, he found a family of mice nesting in the ruined seat of a chair. In the bathroom, he disturbed a bat, which flew in worried loops around his head. In one of the upstairs bedrooms, he found a wardrobe full of moths and a drawer heaving with beetles. At every turn, he expected to stumble upon something significant, but all he could find was wildlife. Admittedly, the beetles were fascinating, scrambling over one another as they panicked in the candlelight. Stuart stood staring at them for at least a minute before realising that a low noise coming from outside the house was getting louder. It was a lorry, backing up, and there were shouts too, and boots on the pavement, and the whine of the gate hinge. He went over to the window and tried to peer through a slit between the boards, but before he could see anything at all, he heard a regular thud, 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 and realised that someone was climbing up the ladder onto the scaffolding. Children, that means that all the workmen have arrived. The diggers probably arrived. There's a JCB and a lorry outside. They're coming to pull the house down, and he's inside it. And from downstairs he could hear a ripping, tearing noise as someone else started to pull the planks away from the front door. Stuart blew out the candle and ran for it. Goodness me, where's he going to run to? He's inside a dilapidated house. He's inside. They don't know he's inside, and they're about to get their diggers and pull the whole thing down. He's in danger. What on earth is he going to do? We'll find out what he gets on with tomorrow. Okay? So, but I can hear. What's going on? There's something. Oh no. Jeannie's gone.